Even Bill Kaysing agreed along these lines.
Even Bill Kaysing? And no, he didn't say anything about discoloration in the lunar regolith. His claim was far more stupid. He said we'd be able to see the cloud of dust that was raised by the lander. At least that's what you read from his book.
Obviously, we could indeed be able to see this disturbance if it spread out as far as claimed. We learned earlier that this alleged halo spread out 150 meters. That's large enough for even the Hubble to resolve. All propagandists seem to agree that the smallest object the Hubble can resolve on the Moon is 60 meters across.
The Moon is 384,000 kilometers away. At that distance, the smallest things Hubble can distinguish are about 60 meters wide.
The new kid on the block, Phil Webb, argued that this cloud of moon dust would have settled long ago. True, but with no air on the Moon to disturb the soil, we should still be able to see the aftermath of this jet blast. Since I mentioned Phil Webb, I might as well get this out of the way real quick. After making the same denial as Astrobrand that scientists claim the engine bloom disturbance should be easily seen, Webb says this.
Jarrah goes on to read out of the Hoax Conspiracist Bible, Bill Kaysing's self-published book, We Never Went to the Moon. He reads a passage describing how Kaysing thought that the astronauts should have set a timer and blown up the descent stage after they left the Moon so that people on Earth could see the flash and know they were there. He even suggests burying charges to make a dust cloud that would be visible from Earth. The man was a lunatic. And I really don't understand how this relates to the LRO image at all. I can only guess that Jarrah is somehow thinking that this is related to the dust cloud caused by the lunar module descent stage.
Probably because it is related to the cloud of dust lifted by the engine. True, in the 1981 edition that I read, Kaysing proposed blowing up the leftover descent stage with its remaining fuel to create a cloud of dust visible from Earth. But in his 1974 edition, he says the cloud of dust raised by the lander would also be visible from Earth. After pointing out the absence of a crater left by this engine, Kaysing writes, "Furthermore, the dust cloud would have been enormous, possibly even visible with large telescopes on Earth." So, why did I quote from the 1981 edition and not the 1974 edition? Well, as you may notice, the 1974 edition had very small font spread across 8.5 by 11-inch paper. This naturally makes the text difficult to see in Sony Vegas. The 1981 edition has larger font, so, as an editor's decision, I decided to show the page from that book. I honestly didn't think there was any need to specify that this visible cloud applied to both scenarios. Whether it's exhaust gases coming out of the descent engine or blowing up the LEM with its remaining fuel, the blast of these propellants would have the exact same effect. And once again, even if we miss the cloud of dust raised by the engine, the aftermath would still be very visible. If the plume was so powerful that it caused a disturbance visible from orbit, you would expect this disturbance to be visible in the actual surface photographs.
Well, Jarrah, show us a surface picture taken in the ultraviolet, and let's see if it does.
No need. The visible light photos will suffice. We've just seen God only knows how many professional scientists and NASA followers claim this bright anomaly should be visible from orbit. So where is it in these photos? Where is the evidence of rocket plumes spreading out 150 meters across the moon dust? It doesn't show up anywhere. When the world's scientific community says something should be there and it doesn't appear, alarm bells should go off in one's head. Well, that wraps up part 1 of Astrobrand's Halo video. Now let's move on to part 2.
In summary, you claimed that this LRO photo proved that the Apollo missions must be fake because it doesn't seem to show the pale halo on the surface from the lander's exhaust plume. You showed the 2008 JAXA photo which claimed to reveal this halo. You didn't believe that's what it showed. I was skeptical too. But I'm wondering why you didn't show the 1971 NASA photos, which appeared right below these in the same JAXA article.
Correction, I did discuss these pictures in a previous video, but since you asked, let's compare these to the LRO images. Both these images are from Apollo 15. From that alone, I could just easily dismiss them as being faked. But where's the fun in that? As Astrobrand correctly states, the photo on the left is taken from the lunar module prior to the touchdown, and the one on the right is a metric photo taken aboard the CSM after the landing. The metric image shows the halo, but the photo taken earlier shows nothing. Even though we have established that the halo was not caused by the LEM exhaust, some have clung to these before and after photos as a trump card to try and back up that spurious claim. One such individual is YouTube user Apollo Was Real.
See JAXA's own website. Just Google for TC_007. It shows the SELENE image next to the two A15 pan camera images, one before and one after the landing. The lightened area is visible in only 2 of the 3 images. That clinches it. The DPS plume marks have been seen on other Apollo missions, always along the known final approach path from the east.
When I pointed out that the photos only show the bright sides of craters, and a certain pro-NASA individual agreed with me on those lines, he claimed that the crater was brightened by the LEM exhaust.
Okay, then it shows brightened craters that weren't brightened until Apollo 15 landed there. The before and after pictures are the clincher.
Talk about clutching at straws. Time to put the so-called before and after photos to rest. We'll start with the before image. Notice how only one crosshair is present in the image. This means that it is a Hasselblad photograph and it has been cropped. The Japanese were kind enough to give us the image number, AS15-87-11719. We punched that into the Apollo Archive website and voila! As you can see, the photo was allegedly taken with the landscape and the camera level. Let's zoom into the area that JAXA showed us. The crosshair makes it easy to find. Flipping through these images, the landscape is clearly the same, although the brightness and contrast has evidently been adjusted in the JAXA release. Still, the halo is not visible. Now let's look at the aftershot. Image number AS15-9430. Well, actually, the correct number is AS15-P-9430. Unfortunately, the only copy I could find was this low resolution from the Lunar and Planetary Institute. Zooming in on the area of interest only distorts the picture quality, although we can just make out the bright halo. Just for the record, we know both of these images are faked, because they came from the exact same mission that was proven to be faked. But giving these two photos the benefit of the doubt, if the engine plume did not cause the halo, as we established, why does the halo only seem to appear after the vehicle supposedly landed? As we saw earlier, the image taken aboard the LEM was taken from an angle. If we look at the after photo, zoomed out, together with the subsequent photos that are part of this sequence, we see the camera is looking directly down on the landing site. That's why the halo only appears in one photo. If the crater was reflecting sunlight directly up at the CSM, the crater would indeed appear as a bright halo. But if viewed from the side, as the LEM photo allegedly was, the camera would not be in direct line of sight with the illuminated edge of the crater. Thus, the bright area would appear dim, or not as bright. Take this example that I shot out of an aeroplane window. Notice how the pond below appears white. But as we continue on the flight path, and thus continue looking at the same area from a different angle, we move out of direct line of sight with this reflection, and the brightness diminishes. So the bottom line here is, neither of these Apollo 15 photos show evidence of engine disturbance or soil discoloration or whatever. They are just two photos of a bright crater taken from two completely different angles. But of course, because the JAXA releases were cropped, we couldn't see that the photos were taken from different angles. It is extremely misleading, not to mention deceptive, for the Japanese to crop these images, supposedly taken at different angles in lunar orbit, and then pass them off as evidence for engine disturbance.